How's it going, guys? It's Cole from See-Through Panel showing off the Metabarons second cycle hardcover by Humanoids. Retails for $40 US. I'll get to the credits in a minute. Writer and artist. Just a typical hardcover, a little bit oversized. Has a ribbon bookmark. That's about it in terms of production. I'm not going to be spoiling too much. The Metabarons is a Jodorowsky, I guess, property. Alejandro Jodorowsky on story, it says. I don't know how true that is. Jerry Frizen on writing. Frizen. Valentine Sechet and Nico Henrichsen on art. Four, I guess, albums, about 60-page stories by Valentine, and then Nico does two of them, so totaling 6 kind of chapters in this long story. I'm not going to be spoiling too much. There's not that much to spoil. It's a giant cosmic, like, sci fantasy romp, very operatic, very arch, very over the top. Love kind of trumps all, which is the case in a lot of Jodorowsky's work, but love is kind of a loose term. Just not a lot to spoil. I'm going to be flipping through a lot of it, and I will warn you, there is gore and nudity. There's a lot more nudity than gore. And I'm not going to be censoring anything, so just be aware of that. If you've read the Incal or any of the other Metabarons books, this is obviously in that universe. It is relatively self-contained. If you don't read the first Metabarons hardcover, I don't know why you would skip that over this, but if you did, this will work just fine for you. They allude to a lot of background and history, but you don't really need to know anything. It's all maybe not well explained. It's all explained inside the story. Although I would just highly recommend read the Incal and then Juan Jimenez and Jodorowsky's Metabarons and get some of that going, because this is a fantastic book with fantastic art, but that is really the start of this whole story, and it is just beautifully illustrated. I have the Jimenez book right behind me I was trying to look at. Just one of the best artists of all time to work in comics. Here is Valentine Sechet. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not sure. His art here, just very painterly, fantasy style, something that I think works really well in this world. And then Nico Henrichsen, I'll show you his style here. It is a lot different, still very kind of a lot of lines on the page, a lot of detail, very fine detail. Coloring is a lot different, and characters look a lot different, but it does work, I think, really well as a kind of self-contained middle part of the chapter that kind of segues into the latter half of the full story. I will say I prefer the more typical art style that we're used to in this world, which is kind of the super hyper-detailed, painterly, fully rendered style. Not to say that Henrichsen's isn't. He reminds me a bit of Stocco in the way he draws characters and his line, but not completely ridiculously over-rendered constantly like Stocco. Basically what this follows the Metabaron, goes by the title of No Name, the Metabaron, a intergalactic warrior who is on a quest to defeat the Techno Empire, which is ridiculous. Jodorowsky's plots are not filled with tact, and they're not refined. They are very much emotional storytelling. Not everything is completely thought out. Characters sometimes act in very strange ways that does not seem consistent for the sake of progressing the story. Kind of chalked up to extremely strong emotion running through them, which is basically how every character acts in this, just completely acting on emotion. But it is a beautiful book. It is a world that I love ever since I read the Incal with Mobius. It's just that I think Mobius breathed life into these characters in the story that Jodorowsky himself does not bring to the table. And so when you have Jerry Frizen, who I assume is doing scripts, if not fully plotting this, he's at least scripting it, does a great job. It works well. He sounds just like Jodorowsky at times, other times a little off, but it does work inside the universe. It all kind of flows well as a whole. It's just that if you're looking for something with a lot of really deep themes and interconnected subplots and kind of a grand scheme plot and just something very refined, this is not that. This is a popcorn action movie that happens to have beautiful, beautiful art and a long-running story that makes it seem operatic and grandiose, but at its heart, it's a popcorn flick. Uh, it's really what it is. And this is not the full ending of the story, so we had Metabarons. This is the Metabarons second cycle, a few single books here and there, and then we're having the Metabarons finale hardcover, which is going to be in my next haul video, hopefully. And that'll be the end of the story of the Metabarons and their lineage and everything. So it is a very grand story. It has a lot of history behind it. It has a lot of... The page count is very high. It's just that really what it is one-off stories, one after another, kind of expounding on this history. It doesn't really all come together to make one grand storyline. Oftentimes, the history referenced in a volume is referencing the volume before it. So a lot of that deep history and lore doesn't really come up. It's more referential towards the more recent stuff. This is going to be a quick one because I really just don't have a ton to say. I'm flipping through this idly. I don't want to give too much away. I think this one does a good job of having one consistent story. I love when they draw the like marble, I think it's supposed to be. Juan Jimenez did it best. I mean, it's just gorgeous under his pen, but like I said, nudity and gore are going to be in here plenty. Jodorowsky loves to depict sexuality and just love in all forms, which is welcome, I think. It does kind of turn into a love story, which honestly, I mean, I'm not huge on love stories. I do like them, but it grounded the story a bit more and made it more interesting for me because I feel like we had a plot thread that was going to be pulled through multiple volumes, and it kind of was. And so I was happy that kind of grounded the characters and put things into perspective a little bit and gave us something to hold on to, because what you're really just along for the ride, grabbing on by the coattails a lot of the time when it comes to a Jodorowsky story. And so I love these washed out underwater pages by Sachet. This is just beautiful stuff. But I'm really in it for like the crazy sci-fi landscapes, the spaceship designs, the crazy action, the technology, the almost fantastic, like magical, in terms of fantastic, I mean like it's basically magic at times. It's extremely advanced technology to the point where, you know, you can't discern if it's magic or tech, and it doesn't matter. Alternate universes, transhumanism, and you'd think there'd be a lot of themes there. They're not deep. They're right on the surface. Characters say exactly what they mean. The dialogue is stilted at times. Jerry Frison, I'm going to try and say Frisian. I don't know how you're supposed to say it. Jerry Frison sounds just like Jodorowsky in the way that his dialogue is stilted, ham-fisted, and raw. And I mean that raw is a good thing. The others, I probably sound bad, but it's enjoyable. It's just very bare bones. This is what's happening. We're going to say the plot out loud a lot of times. You're never questioning someone's motivations. They're going to tell you what their motivations are. And so it's probably coming off that I don't like this book that much. And I really enjoy reading the Metabarons every time I read it, because I love this balls to the wall, crazy. You never know what's going to happen because it's all so insane. There doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason to half the stuff going on in this book. It just kind of happens, and you're just being pulled along. And this whole chapter is basically sex. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. I mean, it took me a long time to read this thing. It's like well over 300 pages probably. There's some bonus material in the back of like process and things. I'm trying to find... Yeah, about 330, 340 pages. I really enjoyed the whole thing. It took me quite a while to read it. 6 volumes, but I use that term loosely because it's 60 pages or so per volume. At times, the text is just covering the page. At times, there's almost no text. It's hard to like kind of pin down the pacing of it. In terms of like reading time, pacing-wise, it actually works well. I think that's the thing that Jodorowsky and Frisian have never had a problem with, is it always kind of feels like it's progressing naturally. Like even if the plot points don't feel natural and they feel a little stilted, in terms of like you as the reader, you feel like you're never disjointed and you're never questioning why is this taking so long? Why is this not happening? Why is this not being shown? Things tend to move fluidly, even if they are moving erratically, I'll say. So that I think is at least a testament to the storytelling of Frisian. And I give him a lot of credit because he's working in an environment that is extremely one note. So it is just all surface. It's all style, no substance. There's some substance. I don't want to be too mean. And he's doing it very, very well. And he made an awesome Metabarons story that I think is up there with the original Metabarons book in terms of just like enjoyment for me. I don't think it's up there on the quality of the book in terms of writing or art, but I think in terms of just like pure fun, this is great. It all serves to one large story, even if it is a bit disjointed at times and kind of by volume 6 they seem to have really forgotten volume 1. It was really just there to kind of set up the pieces, which isn't a bad thing at all. I really sound negative about this. It's just that I know what Metabarons in the Incal world are, and I accept it, and I love them for what they are, but I can still say, like, it's not like Shakespeare, you know? Well, it's some Shakespeare. It's not the really good Shakespeare that everyone loves. It's just like popcorn, action flick, space stuff, space action, sex, violence. And it's really cool. It's really fun. It is quite engaging all the time. I just got done reading this about 20 minutes ago. I sat down and read the last 2 volumes, 5 and 6, and really enjoyed them. The world building in this is shallow but pervasive. I think they recite the same things over and over again, but I mean, it is very consistent in terms of its world. Uncharacteristic of me, I'm not talking about the art much. It's just gorgeous all the way through. I have a favorite, obviously, in Sachet, but Henrichen's books, I think, work super well, and they're really fun to read. It was a really nice change of pace. It felt a little more comic booky, if that makes any more sense. It just felt a little more... it felt a little more natural, because sometimes with really painted art, things can be stiff. And I wouldn't say Sachet's stiff. His art is stiff, but it's this is just a little more fluid. It reads a little bit cleaner. So in terms of like readability and storytelling, I think Henrichen takes the cake, because just full painted, like hyper rendered art does tend to like really lag behind on like readability. It is a bit stiff, but in terms of just flipping a page and just looking at the glory, the beautiful art on it, the last half has some really fantastic panels. This takes the cake all the way. Sachet takes the cake. It's just gorgeous. Let me see if I can find... yeah, that. I haven't really held up the art much this video. Just beautiful stuff. This already is longer than I thought. It's just there's not much to talk about. I kind of repeated myself a lot. I really did enjoy it. It sounded super negative, I know. It's just that I don't want to overhype this thing. It is what it is, and it is exactly that. And that's not a bad thing. It's super fun. I'm still figuring out what I want to rate it in my internal little system I keep. But I'm leaning to like the writing's like a 6.5. The art's like a 9. But there are things that I love where the writing is like, this is out of 10. The writing can be like a 4 out of 10. And sometimes I just still love that thing. Movie, show, book, comic, whatever. It's just like something you feel. And I really do enjoy this thing. But when I talk about it critically, it shouldn't be that good. I should have front-loaded the video with this, because now if you just watch the first half, you think I hate this book. It shouldn't be this good, but I really enjoyed reading it. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Peace.